medical, surgical, pediatric, and radiation oncology care. She's also studying for a doctor of nursing practice degree with a specialization as a family nurse practitioner. Tammy volunteers as a nurse consultant and sonographer at a pregnancy center in Las Vegas with a focus on empowering and educating underserved minority women, and is representing Nevada Right to Life this evening. So thank you all for coming. Trey, can you start us off?
Thank you for that kind introduction. I figured I would start off with an overview of where Nevada law is in terms of reproductive rights and what have been some recent challenges to it that we've seen in the Attorney General's office. First of all, as referenced at the beginning, Nevada revised statute 442.250 as passed by the voters of Nevada in 1990, guaranteed a right to a legal abortion until 24 weeks of pregnancy. That law cannot be changed by the legislature, whether they are interested in doing so or not. Only voters can pass a referendum to change or repeal it. And under such circumstances, there's never been a reason for the Nevada Supreme Court to consider whether the Nevada state constitution and its constitutional protections guarantee a right to abortion, similar to the analysis the U.S. Supreme Court had adopted in Roe. And states such as Kansas and Montana have determined based on their respective state constitutions. In 2022, there were 2 statewide statutory measures proposed to change Nevada statute proposed by Protect Our Girls that are related to reproductive health. One was to require a minimum of 48 hours for parental written notification before seeking medical care, specifically including abortion. The other sought to create a specific parental right to review all medical records of the child and to make and consent to all healthcare decisions of the child. Neither received sufficient signatures to be put before the legislature at the 2023 session. In addition to, so that was a really long-winded way of saying that Nevada law did not change with regards to the right to reproductive health care, specifically including abortion, based on the Dobbs decision by the U.S. Supreme Court. However, as referred to, Nevada has been undergoing impacts to its reproductive health care system, which I will defer to my colleagues here to describe in more first-hand detail, based on Nevada's location relative to states that have made the decision to significantly restrict access to reproductive health care, and based on Nevada's standing as a travel destination for a variety of reasons. It is easy to travel to Nevada from a variety of states, including those that have made the decision to have different access to health care. There are reports following Texas passing its initial 6-week abortion ban, where it empowered others to seek civil action against people, kind of affirmatively referred to by the press as a bounty. Nevada started hearing reports from providers that people were traveling from other states to receive legal, professional, safe medical care here. In response to that issue, former Governor Sisolak issued Executive Order 2022-08, which had 3 major provisions to it. The first was no assistance would be provided by the Nevada State Executive Department agencies for any investigation or proceeding in another state for providing, securing, receiving, inquiring, or assisting anyone receiving reproductive health care services that are legal here in Nevada. In short, Nevada would not be cooperating with efforts to report back to Texas as one potential example. The second major thrust of that executive order was production of healthcare and other professionals licensed in the state of Nevada for providing reproductive healthcare services that are legal in Nevada in another state, rather than deferring to potential reciprocal discipline that may take place in a state that has imposed significant limits on reproductive health care. This executive order protects healthcare and other professionals, protects their license here in Nevada so long as they're in compliance with Nevada law when providing services, even if they've run afoul of laws in other states. The third aspect of Executive Order 2022-08 was the unavailability of interstate extradition to another state for reproductive health services that are legal in Nevada. Nevada made a decision by this executive order we would not extradite people to states to be punished under other states' laws for so long as whatever reproductive services at issue with that extradition request were not prohibited by Nevada law in terms of our reproductive laws, as I described earlier. That executive order still remains on the books today, notwithstanding the change in administration that occurred this month that everyone is aware of. In fact, there is proposed legislation by Senate Majority Leader Canizaro to codify this same executive order. In a response to a Review Journal article on January 19th, Governor Lombardo released a statement seeking to encourage, quote, the legislature to send a clean bill codifying that executive order to his desk, comma, and he looks forward to reviewing the proposed legislation, end quote. So as of this moment, and I will defer to people who are providing healthcare services as to what sort of influx there is or isn't that they're seeing in their practices. In terms of Nevada, Nevada has strong protections existing under executive order that have not been changed by the new administration in terms of so long as any services provided to someone from another state are consistent with Nevada law, there will be no consequences in Nevada. So that's the status of what the law is in Nevada at this point. I feel like I've been talking for quite a bit so far at the start. I'm laying the groundwork. I'll stop and turn it over.
Thank you. Chair Peters?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk today. My name is Sarah Peters. I am representing Assembly District 24 in the Nevada Legislature. I served as the chair of Joint Interim Standing Committees on Health and Human Services this last interim, and I will be the chair of the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services during this upcoming 2023 legislative session. A lot of what my talking points today were going to be have been covered. So I'm going to just kind of briefly talk a little bit about, let's see, what this means for Nevada. So the idea that the Dobbs decision has really placed the onus of determining reproductive rights on the states impacts Nevada in a different way. Our law is steeped in states' rights. That's part of our history, and we were kind of ahead of the game on our own reproductive rights being codified in the way that they are, protected by the majority vote of the public. However, this also highlights the importance of voter access and local representation throughout the history of Nevada, and it's something that I think needs to be a part of the conversation related to abortion access at this point. Based on the Dobbs decision. We've done a lot of work in the legislature over the last 2 sessions that I've been a part of the legislative body to increase access and make sure that access to voting is as equitable as we can make it to date. Mail-in ballots have been a huge factor on ensuring that the public has access to voting, and as we're looking at the Dobbs decision and what that means for state rights, I think that that's imperative to the conversation today. I want to talk a little bit about that 1973 bill. It's known as Assembly Bill 319 from the legislative session in 1973. The preamble provides that it is the intent of the legislature of Nevada to enact a statute that recognizes the deep concern the people of Nevada have to protect the health, well-being, and welfare of each pregnant female and of the child whereof she is pregnant, without interfering with the constitutional rights of any pregnant woman or any person licensed to practice medicine, surgery, or obstetrics under Chapter 630 of the NRS. It should be noted that most laws related to abortion are contained in Chapter 442, Maternal and Child Health abortion of our Nevada revised statutes, or MRS. And this particular section was established over half a century ago. If you believe the 70s were over 50 years ago. So these statutes that were implemented in 1973 or voted on in 1973 by the legislative body, they have been amended multiple times, as has been discussed. And then in 1990, the referendum ensured those protections for a certain portion of that text. However, one of the concerns we have in the legislative body is the ability to restrict abortion access through onus on a pregnant person or provider. And that's something we've been seeing across the country over the last decade at least, is an attack on providers and requiring providers to provide services that are not essential to the the health care of a pregnant person, or requiring that people who are looking to access abortion jump through hoops that are onerous and potentially harmful and traumatic to them. We tried to address some of those issues in the Trust Nevada Women Act, known as SB 179 in the 2019 legislative session. Those changes along informed consent laws with current medical standards of care, updated statutory language regarding how informed consent will be given, and required certain information to be explained to patients through an interpreter if necessary. And the bill also repealed statutes that prohibited the use of medication commonly referred to as abortion pill during pregnancy. Sorry. In addition to the provisions already discussed, Nevada law contains other relevant requirements related to abortion. I already alluded to the requirement that a physician must obtain informed consent from a pregnant woman before performing an abortion, and such informed consent requires that the physician provide a pregnant woman with certain information about her pregnancy and an abortion procedure. Except for medical emergencies, Nevada law also makes it optional for hospitals, other medical facilities, and certain healthcare providers to perform abortions under certain circumstances. There are still criminal penalties on the books for abortion-related practices. Regarding these penalties, it's a misdemeanor for any person who violates the law concerning abortion or informed consent. Additionally, there are multiple laws related to committing the crime of abortion. For instance, a woman who terminates her own pregnancy after the 24th week of pregnancy outside of the care of a physician is guilty of manslaughter. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about the parental notification law and requirements in Nevada. Nevada law prescribes requirements concerning the notification of the parent of a woman under 18 years of age before providing an abortion. In brief, parental notification requirements for pregnant minors initially enacted in the 1985 legislature were enjoined by Nevada's federal district court before they became effective. This seems to remain the case today, and I think some of our panel can talk a little bit more about the impact of that legislature. It appears, though, that those requirements, parental notification requirements, never took effect. So, consequences of the Dobbs decision that we're dealing with today, that unless there is another constitutional amendment approved by a majority of Nevadans, it appears that abortion will remain legal in our state despite the Dobbs decision. However, except the provisions submitted to and approved by a referendum of the voters in the 1990 general election, all other Nevada laws relating to abortion may be amended or repealed by the legislature. Additionally, we cannot tell how the parental notification requirements before performing an abortion upon a minor may be affected by the Dobbs decision, and I would need additional legal interpretation to be able to speak on that issue. We talked a little bit about the executive order and the state of the executive order and the intent of the legislative body to ensure that that is codified in our statutes to protect providers of abortion. As we look towards the legislative session, 2023 legislative session, there are several of us in the legislative body who are committed to ensuring that there are protections and that protections remain for abortion seekers in the state of Nevada, and reproductive rights is something that's guaranteed in our state, regardless of who is looking for it or needs it, and who and what level of care they may require related to that abortion. I don't have in front of me a list of bills. We are still in the drafting process. I haven't seen all the language for bills that have been submitted, pre-filed. So far, we will get more of that as the session progresses, and I expect to see more language up until almost March. So please keep informed. I'm sure that your colleagues there are able to let you know about the legislative Nellis system that will allow you to preview bills and track their progress through the legislative session. That's where all that information will be held.
Thank you. Carl?
Hello, I'm Dr. Carla Torres. I've been a OBGYN since 2006, and I provide full scope women's health care, of which a small part of it is family planning, mostly concentrated in obstetrics, where I oversee delivery services for 3 of the large hospitals in Las Vegas, as well as provide emergency gynecological care throughout Las Vegas at these hospitals. So see the gamut and practice the gamut of women's health care. I also work in a facility at time to time that provides family planning. And I was asked to come and speak on how the post-Dobbs decision has changed the landscape of medical practice. I can tell you that about 20% of our patients at any given time are coming from states that no longer offer full-scope reproductive services. I can tell you that a good majority of them have medical indications, issues with the fetus, either anatomical abnormalities, chromosomal abnormalities that are not consistent with a healthy life, and we've been managing those patients. I can tell you that in the wake of the Dobbs decision, things were questionable whether or not care could be provided, and we did have a lot of patients traveling from out of state, especially when Arizona was changing their legal limits to either not include at all to where they currently are, allowing procedures up to 15 weeks. That would result in a backup of about 200 patients at any given time on waiting lists, seeking services and traveling into Las Vegas to receive their care. We do have these patients on a regular basis and have to deal with logistics management. And these are women who can afford the time and the logistical support necessary to leave their home states, receive medical care in Las Vegas, and leave shortly thereafter. So there's a bit of a hurdle with providing that medical care on such a short notice. So other than that, I'm available for any questions when the time comes.
I've spent the first 10 years of my career doing military lectures, so I'm going to be a little less formal. And can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay. Because I'm going to be moving around and walking around a little bit. I did have a PowerPoint presentation, so just bear with me for 1 second. I have to remember my password. So thank you, Craig. Thank you, Carla. I just found out that Carla and I actually know each other because it is a small world. I've worked in surgical services for a long time, about 14 years in this state. And so we realized that we've probably bumped many times into each other and had the same colleagues. at these hospitals. So. Alright. So I want to thank everybody for inviting me, especially Dr. Dave, thank you, and Deborah. Appreciate you guys inviting me, and I want to thank all of you guys. I did get to meet some of you, but most of you I don't know. My mom called me this morning because she knew I was giving this talk, and just to give you a little bit of background, I'm half Korean and mostly French, Euro-Asian mix, and my mom only has a 4th grade education, and she grew up post-Korean War. She calls me, she's like, honey, I don't know what you're talking about this morning or this evening, but I just want, make sure you tell everybody to thank their mothers for choosing life, because none of us can make it. Shout out to everybody's mom. Thank you for choosing life. So anyway, I'm super grateful you guys are here. Most of you guys are law students, I'm guessing, from the UNLV or people from the public. I will reserve anything graphic because out of respect for the public, but if you want more information, I'm happy to provide that. So a little bit of my background. I am a student, just like many of you guys. I attend Medical University of South Carolina, the DNP, I'm a student. Fancy, lots of acronyms just for doctor, nurse practice, family nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse for over 20 years, started off as a military nurse. I'm also a medical missionary. I work with Medical Missions Outreach. I'm a sonographer, as you know, for pregnancy services here in Nevada, and also started in Oakland in the Bay Area, and Army captain. So this is my family. Yes, it's my family. I just recently got married last August to my best friend, and together we had 10 children. Yes, 5 girls, 5 boys. 6 of them are mine, 4 are his, and our oldest has Down syndrome and autism. And he truly is special. And Mark, my husband, says that he's the glue to the family, and I have to agree, that's true. Half of the children, so 6 of them have graduated, 5 attend college, and 4 live at home, including Noah. And as I mentioned, I was in the military. Is anybody else in the Army here? I know it was predominantly Air Force. Nobody? There's no Army representative? Jamie, I know you're Air Force. How about Air Force? I just want to thank all of our veterans. Anybody who served, thank you for your Same pictures of my dad. He's one of my heroes. My mom's one of my inspirations and heroes too, but my dad has always told me, he's like, Tammy, you can do anything. And because of that attitude, that's pretty much what I've done. Just about. As I mentioned before, I am very much involved in global health and medical missions throughout my life and career. And endeavors, education. I did homeschool 6 of my children, and we did a lot of travel for education. I have been to 6 continents. I'm not interested in Antarctica. And over 50 countries. And when my children turn 16, they get to go with mom, and they get to pick where in the world they want to go with mom. So it's pretty cool. I'm also a little bit of a geek. Anybody in here, a tech person into recently started dabbling into artificial intelligence and medicine, and went to the global summit last year in San Francisco, and I was like, you know what, there's this competition going, I'm just going to try, I'm just going to apply. And I actually won the artificial intelligence and medicine global health competition, and that was a pretty big deal. I was shocked. Even my kids were like, Mom, how'd you win? Well, it was a great opportunity, and because I won, I got a lot of different scholarships, including the intermediate, the beginner, intermediate, and advanced course. So I am now board certified, American board certified in artificial intelligence and medicine. So I am more geeky about the tools. So this is actually one of the tools that we use in AI tool microbiology, and I got to use this on my last mission trip to the Galapagos Islands in October. And some of these women were in pregnancy crisis. Obviously, they don't have much medical care. And so this device is so cool. You literally plug it into your iPhone or iPad, And you can do an ultrasound. Are you aware of this? The butterfly. I love the butterfly IQ. It's so awesome. And so, as you can see, the image is so clear. You can see everything. And this lady was really excited because she was told that her baby was dead. And so I was able to show her that, no, your baby's alive and well with a heartbeat. So anyway, it's a phenomenal invention, device. I tell you guys all of this because if you can't tell already, I am very passionate. I'm passionate about life. I'm passionate about people. My motto is love God, love people. And I love all people. I truly do. From little itty bitty people that are just growing in their mother's womb, all the way to special needs people. As I was coming into Las Vegas this morning, I was at the airport and there was a group of men, all in wheelchairs, and a lot of them are missing limbs. Some obviously were born that way, I can tell, and some it happened by happenstance, an accident. And being in the military, I understand that because I've had a lot of soldiers miss their limbs through the result of war. So anyway, there was this group of men, they're all in wheelchairs, they're all clearly disabled. And I had to go up to them, like, you guys are some kind of team, what do you guys have going on? And they said, we are wheelchair rugby team. And I'm like, wow. I actually went to Syracuse University for my undergrad, and that's how I know a little bit about rugby, but it's a very violent sport. Anybody else know about rugby? I mean, it's pretty crazy. And so here are these guys in these wheelchairs, and like I said, missing arms, legs, and they had all these like pads on, and they looked tough. They really did. And so I just thought, wow, that's beautiful. That's incredible. These guys have purpose. And whereas some people might look at them and say, oh, they were a mistake, that they were born that way. I don't know if any of you have heard of Nick Vujicic. He's an Australian speaking guy. Oh my gosh, he's one of my heroes. Whenever my kids tell me, Mom, I can't do something, I'm like, okay, we're watching a Nick Vujicic YouTube video. This man was born with no arms and legs. He's gone surfing, he's skydiving. You name it, this guy's done everything. He can walk. He has no arms and legs. This man can walk. It's incredible. Anyway, look him up. He's incredible. So life is beautiful, and that's my point of view. I believe that every life is worth living, and I believe each and every one of you have purpose. My mom did say to make sure to tell all of you guys that you're special, unique, and very smart because you're here, and that you all have purpose. As a medical professional, I know this is no longer practiced in most medical schools, but the Hippocratic Oath is very famous, and it has been practiced for hundreds, if not thousands of years, because of these very words. So this was actually translated from the Greek, because I don't think any of us speak Greek in here, so I put the English terminology here, but basically, there's an interesting verbiage in it. It's similar, I will not give to a woman a pessary to cause abortion. And then I will abstain from all intentional wrongdoing and harm. Abortion is clearly stated as intentionally causing death to an infant. And so I want us to think about that for a moment, because as a medical professional, I know that my purpose, that my calling is to protect and save lives. And wouldn't you want a doctor and a nurse that believes that too? If you just had surgery, wouldn't you want that nurse or doctor to do everything to protect and save your life? Yeah. I'm a huge patient advocate. Another reason why I've won 2 Service Excellence Awards at hospitals that I've worked at in surgical services is because patient advocacy is very important to me. As you've heard from my colleagues, Craig and Carla, and where'd she go? I don't know where she went, but the laws haven't changed. Dobbs has an effect in Nevada. It's still the same. So abortion is still legal up to 24 weeks by a medical professional, licensed medical professional, and up to 9 months in a medical facility, a licensed medical facility by a licensed medical professional. That means babies, all the way up into birth, are legally aborted in this state. Craig did mention about the parental consent. Now, this has been ongoing for decades, and it still hasn't had a confirmed hearing yet. So that also means that 9-year-old girls can get an abortion without their parents' knowledge and consent. The same 9-year-old girl cannot take Tylenol or Benadryl at school, right, just administered by the school nurse, without the parents' knowledge and consent, but can step into a Planned Parenthood or an abortion facility and receive an abortion without the knowledge and parental consent. So these types of things are very important to be aware of, so that we as voters and people in the community can take action and stand up for especially young women. There's no screening prior for coercion, and informed consent is still watered down. I believe education is empowerment, so I'm going to educate everybody just a little bit about abortion. So I only started doing this, like ultrasound, about 7 years ago. And like I told you, I've been practicing, I've been a nurse for over 20 years. I didn't know the details about abortion. In fact, I think that most pro-life and pro-choice people don't know the details of abortion. So I would encourage all of us to look into that, watch an abortion video. They're really hard to find, but if you go to liveaction.org, there's a lot of resources there. They have non-graphic ones for education. Because I find that, and it's not too often that you get to talk to someone on the front line, but when you sit one-on-one with a woman that's in a pregnancy crisis situation, and you educate her and empower her with resources, most of them are going to choose life. So the abortion pill, very quickly, consists of, the first pill is misoprostol. So that pill, the purpose of it is to block progesterone, which is the hormone that causes, that helps pregnancy, the pregnancy hormone. And when it blocks that, it starves the baby from the essential nutrients and nutrition it needs to survive. So the baby dies. That's the purpose of the pill. Now it's important to know, this is super important, that there is abortion pill reversal out there. It's called APR. And the abortion pill reversal, if given within its first 24-48 hours, can stop the effects of the abortion. What happens is many of our patients, after taking the abortion pill, regret taking the abortion pill. And to be able to have access to this kind of information and medication that's life-saving is super important. So it's called APR, which is abortion pill reversal, and there is a free network that you can look up, and they provide that there's a hotline. This right here is, so abortion pills can be given up to 10 weeks by the FDA. It's approved up to 10 weeks, but off-label is often given up to 12 weeks. The second pill that's taken 24 to 48 hours after the first pill is, oh my gosh, misoprostol. So that one, that particular drug is placed in the woman's cheek and causes the contraction. So it causes the part where the woman is giving birth. So during that time, there is intense cramping because it's contractions. There is a lot of bleeding, more blood than any woman has ever seen. A lot of these women aren't prepared for what they're about to see, because they're going to give birth to a dead baby. And that's very...
In the interest of time, can we move to Q&A?
Sure. So let me move on. And if you guys have any questions about the different types of abortion, I'm happy to educate about that. Okay, we'll just go straight to Q&A. So, yeah, anybody have any questions about anything? Ask me anything.
I have a question. Can we have at least 5 more minutes so she can finish her topic?
Well,
It's very interesting.
yeah, in fairness, other speakers adhered to we had asked 10 minutes, and we've given Tammy about 15 minutes, so.
You're welcome to ask me questions afterwards. Thank you. Thank you for your time, everybody.
I don't have a question mainly for the people that sort of like to stay aside of it. Do you guys ever get about the men that want want to keep the baby, what happens to that? Is there a law? Is there a law for the man that wants to keep the baby?
Well, so the Supreme Court has, this has come up, states have passed laws that require the woman to get consent for the father, the person who be the father. And the courts have said you can't require that it has to be the decision of the pregnant patient.
Yes, I have a question for you. What is the purpose for the audience to know about the abortion law? What is the purpose for everybody to know about the abortion?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's an important question that we didn't make that the topic for tonight. That could be an important topic for another presentation for sure, but what we wanted to talk about was what's the impact of the Supreme Court's decision going forward, how's that going to affect healthcare and law.
I just want to know, if you want them to be prepared for any case about abortion that they might have,
I can answer that if you want.
okay.
So because the laws have changed with Roe v. Wade, a lot of states have banned abortion, especially up to 15 weeks. So in the state of Nevada, we're getting an influx, just like Dr. Torres said, she's seeing 20% of patients from out of state. We're seeing patients from all different states as well in the pregnancy centers. And so it's important to know the laws because you want to make sure that whoever is performing the legal right for abortion is practicing according to the law.
I have a question for Mr. Murphy. You mentioned that Nevada would assist in investigating people coming here for abortions, or I think practitioners. I guess what I was curious about is you touched on practitioners who may have reciprocal licenses in states where they could perform the abortions here. Is Nevada compelled to provide them with any information if they came here to perform an abortion on one of their patients from another state? Would they have to provide that information to those other states, or what? And would those physicians then face losing their licenses in those states or face prosecution?
My understanding of how the executive order is structured is based on not being reciprocal discipline, much in the context of many people here who are in law school, lawyers. Oftentimes, let's say you were convicted of a felony in Texas as a licensed Texas attorney. If you're also licensed in the state of Nevada with the state bar, there's an automatic process where you're suspended, and then there's independent investigation by the state bar of Nevada here to determine whether there should be reciprocal discipline. This executive order, as I understand it, touches on that type of process, that if there was a Nevada licensed practitioner who performs services, has license to perform services in a different state and has been subject to discipline in that state. I'll just use Arizona as the example, it's the nearest state. And we're subject to discipline based on Arizona's existing laws, which are more restricted than Nevada's at this point. So long as what the practitioner, what services were provided in Arizona by that practitioner, that would not be cause for discipline in Nevada if it was legal under existing Nevada law.
So a follow-up, if it was determined that they had performed an abortion in Nevada, in another state, Arizona, Texas, any other state, could they be prosecuted in that state for under their own state laws?
Could if a Nevada practitioner
Or
who was
let's say
allowed to practice in Arizona,
Right.
use the flip side of the example, and someone was practicing in Arizona while physically in Arizona, and this is a little afield of my expertise, but when you're in another another state, you are subject to that state's laws. And so if you violate Arizona laws, you may be subject to Arizona medical licensure discipline for violating Arizona statute as it pertains to providing reproductive rights. That reciprocal discipline would not occur to the person in Nevada under this executive order, so long as the services they provided in Arizona that were subject to discipline under that example were legal under Nevada law. I hope that was clear.
Well, I'm kind of concerned, I'm curious, in some of these states that have enacted very strict laws where I believe some of the physicians could be prosecuted for criminal purposes as opposed to the licensing purposes. Losing the license is one thing, going to jail is something else.
Nevada does not have the power to control another state's criminal statutes, just like another state does not have the authority to control Nevada's criminal statutes. And so there would not be automatic reciprocal discipline associated with, hypothetically, a conviction under Arizona's existing abortion laws for a Nevada practitioner in affecting their license here in Nevada.
I appreciate it. I'll ask you after the.
No, that's fine. It's a complicated issue, so I appreciate the opportunity to try to clarify.
Dr. Torres, I have a question for you. If you could extend your explanation of how you've operationally shifted to meet this influx of demand, how are you dealing with these individuals who are coming from other states with this very small time window in which they are going to require care? How are you managing that in terms of clinics and sort of dispersing the responsibilities to your team?
So some of the things that have shifted, first and foremost, we're maintaining the quality of medical care that we provide. No corners are cut, no stone is not unturned. We do everything the same way clinically as we did before. One thing we do in addition is our clinics are set up so that they can receive funding through multiple states that provide these patients with funding. In general, having to leave a state to receive medical care that is illegal there, that once wasn't a year ago, increases the cost of this procedure easily 5 to 10-fold, easily. And that's not something that most women can afford to do. So we allow, we work with the aid centers, usually a National Abortion Federation, the Lilith Fund, multiple funds to ensure that if these women do our best to ensure these women can receive care. Also, we've been seeing a higher volume of patients without sacrificing the amount of care that we can provide. In general, at some point, we could have run 24/7 and not managed to care for the medical needs of the entire half the country now that need these services. We do have a greater pipeline with some of the states that don't provide abortion care, that have outlawed and made it legal to have a greater pipeline with their high-risk obstetricians. So in some medical cases, and it's up to everyone to define whether or not they can afford it in their family, some pregnancies are not healthy. They're not chromosomally healthy. They're not where these children will never see a normal day. Never eat, never walk, never speak to you. Diapers until they're 10 years old and never be able to feed themselves. And their parents or their family chooses not to proceed with that pregnancy. And that's with the blessing of their high-risk obstetricians in these states. In doing so, they pipeline these patients to us.
Yeah, may I have the number in Nevada? Did you say up to 24 weeks? I mean, does that mean after 24 weeks you can abort, or only before?
Only before.
Okay.
Only before.
So this is for the First Assistant Attorney General. So I read this somewhere. So if a boyfriend got in a fit of rage and killed his girlfriend, and he knew that she was pregnant. Mm-hmm. Is he charged with 1 capital murder or 2 capital murders? In Nevada, would you charge him for 2 capital murders for killing a baby, and he knew his girlfriend was pregnant, let's say before 24 weeks?
The short answer I'm gonna have to that question is, generally speaking, in Nevada, criminal charging decisions are made by the county's elected district attorney. And generally speaking, the attorney general, notwithstanding his status as the chief law enforcement officer for the state of Nevada, is not day-to-day, or as in truly rare circumstances, the prosecuting attorney of any specific murder, much less a capital murder, potential capital murder offense. So I would just be speculating in terms of identifying how a DA would make that charging decision. And my personal background is from the civil side, so I just can't give you that answer today.
I mean, the baby, when we consider,
I just don't know legally what the answer to that question is, based on what my office does.
when does life begin?
Sir, you had your hand up. Let's go over to Max.
Thank you. So I really want to thank all of you for bringing your various perspectives to this. It's really helpful to have all of that out there. Given what people have said about the status of the law, and that is unlikely to change probably anytime soon, I'm curious, especially about Dr. Torres' thoughts and some people, Peter's thoughts about what could be done from a legislative or a policy standpoint to try to deal with some of the influx. I don't know if Dr. Torres and her colleagues are currently seeing
What could legally be done? I think that,
or what would be helpful, I guess maybe more broadly.
well, having more aid availability for these women, that would be more helpful. I see when we go to clinic, I see women who arrived at 5 a.m. off the flight from Spirit or Southwest Airlines. They're sleeping in the parking lot to make sure they can get an appointment that day or come in on the wait list. They will leave a surgical procedure and have a flight back at, say it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and have to go through TSA by 3 o'clock after having had a medical procedure when they should be allowed to recover and be in bed. Maybe just more support for these women who decided to choose not to continue with their pregnancies.
I think that's a great question. What's your name?
Max.
Max, with the influx of women that are coming in, it's so important to increase our resources, like Dr. Torres says. So we found that when women are coming into the pregnancy resource centers, and many of them are abortion-minded, most of our patients are, and once they are given the reason why most women choose abortion is they feel like, and this is their own words, I don't feel like I have any other choice. But when they are given other options and resources and help and empowerment and love, most of them do choose life. So I would encourage everyone to get involved in the communities. It's important to build communities and resources. So we've got these plethora of resources for our patients that come in. They need clothes, they need food, education, and they need, help with STD clinic. We catch a lot of women who are being trafficked as well. Our youngest patient was 10, our oldest patient was 50. And, in those cases, they need a lot of support and love. Counseling services, clinics, breastfeeding support, drug and alcohol recovery, housing, shelter. We have living grace homes that shelter women who are pregnant that are in crisis situations. So I would encourage, as a community as a whole, to really reach out and put in your resources, whether it's time, talent, and treasure.
Yeah, thank you.